Isabel, the Codesria president, to Mshai, a member of the Codesria EC, to Professor Adebayo Lukoshi, who left us after the first day as the chair of the Codesria Scientific Committee, but also to Joe Oloka Onyango for agreeing to be with us. But perhaps even more importantly, the loyalty with which you sat there from first day to today is truly, truly who I would like to become when I grow up. Professor Shivji, for allowing us to go back to 1989 and celebrate the thoughts that you produced then and that you continue to share with us to date. And of course to Walter Bugoya. I didn't mention this earlier on, but the copies of Professor Shivji's book that you bought only a few copies. Can I repeat that, or I just make it quiet? Mshai has ordered me to mute. The copies of the books that were produced, they were prepared in Dakar. How many people have said bad things about technology? They were prepared in Dakar and printed in Dar es Salaam. And at some point we got worried that we will not make it. So both you and the Mkuki na Nyota team for making this possible. I want to thank you, but also the complementary work done by the Codesria publications team in Dakar. I want to extend our gratitude to all of you. And to all other presenters and participants who took time out of your extremely busy schedule to join us for this particular meeting. I want to extend our gratitude and to thank you most sincerely for being here. That said, I want to also do mention that Codesria is 50 years old this year. We survived teenage years. And those of you who have been teenagers before, you know what it means to be a teenager. You only know after you have gone through. We also, I think, have survived midlife crisis. Okay. And I think the next question on the table for Codesria is, what will we look like 100 years? 50 years from now, but 100 years. I think that's the question that is on the table. And we are daring to think about Codesria in another 50 years. So in December, in the first week of December, we will be convening the 16th Codesria General Assembly and celebrating 50 years of our existence as an institution, Pan-African in orientation, set up, run by academics and intellectuals in the sense of the word. Fully African-led, fully African-run, with nobody other than Africans on its management system, both in the Secretariat and on the board, the Executive Committee. None of the, Isabel, this is not about you. None of the former presidents of Codesria has run for 2 terms. So none has tried to change the constitution. Isabel has been itching to leave for a number of years now. And I'm saying this because I think the distinguishing factor about Codesria has been its Pan-African orientation to knowledge production. And in spite of what Professor Shivji said yesterday, the period of liberalism, I think that we have acquitted ourselves with trying to produce emancipatory forms of knowledge. We may not have been successful, but the desire to unceasingly do that remains a distinguishing feature of the Council. For an institution that is roughly 60% patronized by English-speaking Africa, being located in Dakar has been truly a mark of that desire to embrace our diversity as a continent. So we are 50 years old, and we deserve to celebrate. But two things are important in relation to why we are here in the University of Dar es Salaam. And there's no way the University of Dar es Salaam is going to run away from us. There's no way. The first one is at the level of governance. The third president of CODESRIA was a Tanzanian, one of the leading economists, Mwalimu Nyerere's Minister of Planning, Justinian Ruyamam. And he left a mark. When you read old copies of CODESRIA bulletin, you can see that he left a mark. And having done his role, played his role, and handed over, the imprint of the University of Dar es Salaam and the imprint of Tanzania on CODESRIA remains. You can't delete. Those days there was no delete button on the cyclostyled versions of the documents we produced. But perhaps even more importantly is that the imprint of the University of Dar es Salaam on CODESRIA is in the area of academic and intellectual freedom. When I am sitting somewhere as the CODESRIA Executive Secretary and speaking about academic freedom, I am carrying your baby. I'm looking at the people from the University of Dar es Salaam. This is your baby. And if we do a good job nurturing, you got to be with us all the way. So there was a logic in why we came here first. There's a logic. The Kampala Declaration bears the name of Kampala, but it actually started here in the Dar es Salaam Declaration. We have published several books of conferences and workshops organized by UDASA. And those who are a little bit senior to me will tell you that they would come here and they wouldn't be going to watch Arsenal versus Manchester. They would be going to UDASA to discuss. And I had the pleasure to engage the late Professor Chechage, with whom I served on the executive committee of CODESRIA. And often when I come to the University of Dar es Salaam, I'm not too sure if all of you in the University of Dar es Salaam know about this glorious history. And the baby that you birthed, and fortunately you didn't give it to child traffickers. And CODESRIA nurtured this baby. And it is time we bring it back to the University of Dar es Salaam, because we think you know better how to move that agenda. So that's why we are here. We are here because people like the late Chechage had the good sense to self-organize and use the faculty staff union to move an agenda that has shaken and impacted Africa. And Joe, I hear you about Algiers Declaration and Lima Declaration and what the UNESCO is doing. But actually, each time I'm talking to them and have engaged UNESCO, the Kampala Declaration still remains a reference point, because there is a general feeling that it spoke to what was testing the higher education scene in those years when it was prepared. Professor Shivji, Professor Saida Yaya Othman. Okay? There is a logic in what Dr. Kamata was saying that we sort of forget generationally he is separate from that, because I met you first in that context. Okay? And the younger ones. Well, before I go to the younger ones, and Senkoro, right? Others who have been a little bit difficult to pin down, like Chambi, Vicentia Shule, right? So there is a cohort of people here around whom a legacy has been handed to, and around whom we expect that we can carry this forward. And we made the point that vigilance struggle, eternal vigilance is important to the struggle. I think we made that point. And in my view, that vigilance is going to entail a sound intellectual background to everything we do. Actually, let me perhaps use academic background, because there is a method and there is a conceptualization as to what we want to do. And if you are, sorry to use the word, an empty academic trying to fight a system that is sufficiently organized and prepared for you, you're not going to move them. And so we're going to invest a little bit more resources in research on the question of academic and intellectual freedom as CODESRIA. We're going to invest quite a bit of resources. And we want to draw in the East African region from a cohort of academics and intellectuals organized around the College of Social Science, but monitoring academic freedom, intellectual freedom issues in the region, Eastern African region, covering Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, South Sudan, the countries that conglomerate under the umbrella of the East African community, and just slightly beyond. And we want to do a bit of monitoring. We want to do research that is intellectually grounded. We want to do a bit of capacity building through periodic engagements in meetings like these ones. We also want to be able to intervene to help scholars, academics, intellectuals in distress, which is a program that ran at CODESRIA up to a certain point, and then we stopped. Because there comes a time when you have to exit in order to come back rejuvenated. These are some of the things that we're planning to do. And we thought that before we go to any other region of the continent, we first of all come back home. And we are not going to be exclusive. We are going to be inclusive. We're going to be inclusive partly because the challenge of academic freedom is not just a challenge of those who teach in the university. Challenge of academic freedom can be, has been, a challenge of how those who teach in the university interact with society. And here, talking about students, talking about staff in the university who facilitate intellectual work, but are not necessarily themselves teaching in the university. We're talking about all those associated institutions, persons that make it possible for us to produce knowledge. So we're going to be inclusive. But perhaps even more important, and I'm not too sure that this point came out as strongly as I would have wanted, is to begin to appreciate that there has been a major shift in the associational life in universities and institutions of higher learning. I don't know about Professor Shivji, but I don't know about Joe. But generally, the age cohort of an average university student today is lower than in the 1970s, even in the 1990s. There are times when, at least in Kenya, I know this to be true, when you finished Form 6 and then you hung around the village for a while before the Joint Admissions Board invited you, and in between you had to go for National Youth Service in order to get into this. So the average age cohort of a student today in the university is different. And the associational life has changed significantly, right? Where we needed to walk around campus with posters, putting them on the walls to call for a meeting in a room somewhere, now we WhatsApp. So the community, Joe made this point, the community exists but in a different form. If we don't go back and understand the associational life in the university, I don't think we are going to be successful in implementing a program on academic or intellectual freedom. In my own lifetime in the university, the most important group, association, if you will, in the university had shifted from the academic clubs to the Christian Union. In my own, and I do remember attending at Kenyatta University where I went, I do remember going to church on Sunday and the preacher was extremely unhappy because all forms of engagement were being forced into a religious dimension. And members of the Christian Union, he said, were too important to be yoked, if any of you have read the Bible. And that has disrupted what we understand to be, if the traveling theater was the most important organizing principle in the humanities, the political science club, the law associations were the most important. It has shifted completely. And of course, with the Zoomification, it's shifting even more in our own eyes. And I think that as a research agenda, we need to invite ourselves to understand the associational life within the university in order for us to operationalize our idea of academic freedom. And it's important that if the generational shifts are happening, there is a gender question to be put at the table, perhaps in a more important way than it was at the Kampala meeting in 1990. But let's not assume that there is a universal sisterhood of women. All women are on the same page about everything, and all we need is to mobilize in favor of gender. That in fact, there are multiple levels of oppression that we need to be aware of, and an academic intellectual freedoms agenda has to begin to deal with these diversities. And perhaps more importantly that, and I'm very grateful that someone mentioned in the last panel, the importance of forms of knowledge that do not conform to Western social science. I was reminded this morning from Claudia case, social science as imperialism. That people are producing knowledge that we in the university are ignoring or dismissing out there. And Sabato keeps on reminding us about this in many of the engagements we have. And my point is that if we're going to mobilize ourselves around the notions of intellectual freedom and popular struggles, then we have to revisit all this. I'm saying all this to conclude that, one, we are extremely eager to have a regional center that would help us to mobilize our work around intellectual freedom in the University of Dar es Salaam. And we're doing that to thank you for bringing this baby. And we are hoping that research will be done of good quality. We are hoping that monitoring will be done at a regional level. We're hoping that we can jointly publish and we can jointly convene. The second reason why I'm saying all this is that I am also hoping that at the end of the day, we will do what Joe recommended, revisit the Kampala Declaration. And I think it's important to suggest that we think that 2025 should be the year when we formally reconvene at a continental level to revisit the Kampala Declaration. And I would like the University of Dar es Salaam to play a significant role in this. At CODESRI and the Secretariat, we are going to revitalize the program on academic freedom. And that program will use as its pillars the regional offices in the various 5 regions of the council. I'm hoping that we can then also deliberately integrate indigenous and endogenous forms of knowledge in the work that we are doing, with the possibility of researchers co-producing knowledge with people outside the university, and actually making a good case for integrating forms of indigenous and endogenous knowledge into the curriculum as a central core of what we begin to do. Begin to test the fabric of Western social science, which is dominating here. So the questions I've had about language, culture, and all this, it is possible to begin to test it in an effective way. And finally, we want to intensify our program on publishing on academic freedom. Because there's no need to conduct that research if we can't use it for the purpose for which we are designed to do. So this is my agenda for the University of Dar es Salaam. We will be holding a similar meeting like this one at Eduardo Mondlane University. And Isabel is here both in her shoes as a president of CODESRI, but also as someone who is going to be welcoming us together with her colleagues at Eduardo Mondlane University. And you can see that the drift of choices is informed by a particular understanding of what we think these countries and these universities can bring to this program. So Isabel, I'll ask you to say a thing before we hand over to Dr. Kamata. Thank you very much and all the very best.
Thank you, Godwin. I would like to thank the University of Dar es Salaam, the College of Social Sciences, and Kamata team for organizing this very good colloquium. For me, it was a very good learning process. I learned a lot. It is my first time in the University of Dar es Salaam. I'm coming from an African Portuguese-speaking country, and there are many things that are different in terms of the organization of the university, and I learned a lot from the countries that are represented here. It is true that the problems are very similar. Like someone said, we have one Africa. We have many challenges. Because of the situation we are living, we don't really have academic freedom. I was listening to your presentations, and I was thinking about fear, about auto-censorship that many students and many teachers, my colleagues, feel and live in Mozambique. If you are from the Frelimo party that is in power, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't, you have a lot of problems. We already had teachers that were shot, teachers that were killed during the past 6 years, and we go on having a lot of problems. So academic freedom and social responsibility is really very important. We had seminars forbidden at the Center of African Studies at the very last moment. Frelimo forbid these seminars at the very last moment. This means that we need to have strategies to challenge this situation. And we are doing that like during the colonial time. This is so strange, saying that we are doing that, but we need to strategize. We didn't touch so much on sustainable development, but this is really very important. I was reading again a paper issued by Codesria on from Professor Grieve Shelua. I hope I'm spelling well. He was talking about development and saying that in the last decades, the number of poors aumentou. How do you say aumentou? Is bigger than in the 90s. It went from 300 million to 400 million in the continent. We are the main continent of poor people in the world. And this is a challenge for us. This is something that we as academics need to do. But it is true, I don't know if it happens here, because it is something that we are discussing in Mozambique. In many situations, we produce, we reflect, we do research, but the power is not listening, is not reading. And in many cases, they come and say, oh, you're not doing anything. You're not producing. You are not patriots. But we are producing. I can say on behalf of our universities that we are producing knowledge, and we are challenging the power structures. But it's not easy. So we have a long way, like the others that came before us, but I think it's a good long way. And I'm sure the new generation is finding strategies and will do the best for academic freedom, social responsibility, democracy, and a development that is an African development and chosen by ourselves. Thank you very much.
All right. Habari za mchana. Good afternoon. We are coming to the end of our 3-day meetings. And on behalf, let me begin by advancing our sincere thanks to all of you, and I'm doing this on behalf of the principal of College of Social Science, who is not here with us. She's dealing with the bureaucratic meetings, and that's why she was not able to be with us. But also the team, which worked in a small committee to prepare this particular colloquium, which I had the honor of chairing it. It includes some of them are here. Changwe, you have seen Changwe. Richard Sambaiga is not around. Veronica, you might have seen her somewhere. Mara, those who take the bus to the hotel, you must have seen him. He is also a member of the committee. And Rebecca. Okay, those ones are enough, but there are so many other people who have been very helpful in making this happen. But I also mentioned particularly someone who is not even part of this group, who is not part of the university, a very small person who helped us with the migration issues. We had to get, at a very short notice, permit to allow our colleagues from outside to get their visas. And this small person at the migration office helped us to get the officers do the job for us. So on behalf of everybody here, we are also thanking her for assisting us. But I would not complete my thanks to without mentioning Codestria, Godwin, for bringing the baby back to Dar es Salaam and shouldering us with the burden of handling an old, probably, I don't know, aging baby in a blink of dying. But also the team on the Codestrian side, Sam and the team. Thank you very much. There was a moment when we almost said it may not happen. The day we agreed that it will happen on the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Oh, actually it was 2 days, 7th and 8th. And I looked at the weeks, and I felt, it is short time. I was trying to suggest that we push it a bit forward. And they say, everybody had a commitment. They'd say, no, I think it will go up to December. December, there is something big coming on Codestria. So we stuck on 6th and 7th. And we started working, preparing. And there was a moment I received a message, and it was like, how are we going to do it? And I gave my assurance that it's going to happen. So we put our minds together and efforts together, and it has happened. So it has happened, but then maybe it would have happened better than it has happened. But I hope we created the forum where we have met, and we have had these 3 days of engagement. If there are any shortfalls, those are lessons for the future when you organize a colloquium. And you are okay, because you learn from our problems here. Okay, so I have on the first day I thanked so many people, but I would like to repeat it again for thanking every one of you for coming. I said I managed to call some people. I'm sure I was very busy. I don't know what he did, because I was chatting with her, telling her, are you coming, are you coming, are you coming? And she said, Kaka, I'm here and there. But eventually, I saw her in the list and she was coming. It was very easy to get Zito. I chatted with him and he said, for that one, I'll postpone all the plans that I have and I'll come for the 3 days. Thank you very much, Zito. Oloka, you know the story. Back and forth. And you made it, and you agreed to give a keynote reflection. Okay. Okay, I can't keep on mentioning people, but I'll really thank everyone we were able to bring here. And on the discussions that we have had here for 3 days, there are so many things that reminds me I was not in Kampala, but at least I have the volume that came out of the Kampala meeting, which ended up with adoption of the Kampala Declaration. And I would say again that I got that book when I had an opportunity to visit a university in Europe. But it's a Codestria publication. And it was not available in Tanzania by then. It's 1991. I think I bought my copy in 1995. The bookstores here didn't have a copy, but I happened to be in England and I found a copy and bought one. And I had the opportunity to go through it this morning, particularly the chapter Joel wrote, which sums up the discussions and the issues which arose. And the way he summarizes them, the key issues are similar to what has emerged in this meeting. And I would suggest that if we... Do you still have the copies? Maybe. But I think it's still a relevant volume. It happened in 1991, but most of the issues are raised in that particular volume are still very relevant. Of course, there are new issues, as we are talking about technology, but most of the issues that come out in that volume and are similar to what have been raised here. And I would dare to say that probably the situation is worse today than it was in 1990s. Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do. And it's a good thing that we have met here, and Codestria enabled that. The last time I think we had a conference on academic freedom in Dar es Salaam, in a hotel, and I'll explain why we insisted that it should be here. We had another, 2003 I think, we had a convening in Dar es Salaam which brought people from East Africa, and we had some very good discussions around trying to take stock of the declarations. I don't know, that was about how many years after the declaration in 2023, and Chachaga was still around. And since then, nothing has happened, and it's happening now, and we really thank you for the initiative. We had it at White Sands Hotel then, and this time we said it should happen here. Whatever the facilities that we have, but we'll make sure that it's happening here, and we'll try to make the room comfortable as it is, but you'll bear with us, but it is necessary that we do it here for a very simple reason that we are trying to reinvent the tradition that used to be the University of Dar es Salaam. Debates were happening in this room, in lecture theater rooms, and for a big gathering in Nkrumah Hall. Unfortunately, Nkrumah Hall today is a class room, and we are thinking of making a case to give it status of being a hall where people used to gather and have serious discussions. There is a modern auditorium, the new library, but I think for many people here, it's a kind of intimidating. If you are not invited, you don't feel that you belong there. There are some 1, 2, 3 gates before you get into the room, and so. But in Nkrumah Hall, you can just go sneak in and say, "Listen, what is happening?" And you are attracted inside, and so that environment is lacking. It's better here. That's why, and I'll inform you. This meeting, we had a core group that we invited formally, but I know since day one, we have people who attended this meeting, and they were not formally invited. They only saw the poster, and they came, okay? And they fully participated, and some came the first day and the second day, and some of them are here from day one to today. So there is a whole different atmosphere that a room like this provides in university. So I wouldn't want to take much of your time, only to say that we have had a good discussions, and so many issues have come up, and there are so many tasks ahead of us, apart from what Godwin says, but the immediate ones. One is about popularizing. Before we come to 2025, it's popularizing the existing two documents, the Dar es Salaam Declaration and the Kampala Declaration, because as we heard from some of our colleagues, some, especially many young academics and students are not aware of the existence of these two documents, and therefore the whole idea of academic freedom, of academics and social intellectuals. Another thing is about, I just want to mention one thing, and how the universities have changed the hierarchy. Someone mentioned yesterday or the first day about collegiality, the culture of collegiality. We're talking about culture, the university culture. Because we are the ones who are, let me say this. When I was a student, and what I learned is that if you are head of department, you are an academic leader among equals. If you are a dean of faculty, you are equally an academic leader among equals. I have been here long enough, and I have seen things change. The deans and heads, I'm a head of department myself, they are increasingly becoming bureaucrats, administrators, supervisors of their colleagues. Someone was talking about Kampala, you have this whatever machine that, but here is you know, even the language changed, that if you are, for example, you convene a meeting like this, your principal will be asking, bring your people. And I'm like, so as head of department, you are reminded that you have your people, bring them. So like cows, and you're pushing them to come to the hall for a meeting. So, and the principal will be instructed from above. There is a meeting tomorrow, bring your people. Or when the meeting starts, then she will be asked, where are your people? And then she will push it down to the heads of department. Heads, where are your people? You are supposed to report. My people say, so if you respond, then you say, you start pushing, searching around, where are your people? And reminding these people, where are you? Come to this meeting. That's the university. And someone said that we are not robots. The robotization, not only of the university staff, but also of the university administrators, who are staff. Instructions come from the top to the principal, to the head, to the, and you are given a deadline. By the, sometimes you receive a letter today, and you are told by end of the day you should have reported this and that. Yeah, I'm a head of department. And I say, I'm not an academic leader, I'm not anything, but I'm a clerk of the principal, and the principal is a clerk of this top management. That's a kind of relationship that I have experienced myself being at this university for these years. But when it comes to students, there is, this I think will be the last thing to mention, to say. colleagues have become, there is this academic arrogancy which members of staff have. The moment they get their PhD, they are completely different animals. And this is happening a lot. And so when the students were saying about the relationship between them and their professors, yeah, it's true. Some of us are very arrogant. But also, in my view, it also an expression of our limitation in terms of knowledge. So you can't entertain questions in class because you don't want to be challenged, because you don't know. And even if you don't know, and you know that tomorrow, if I say I don't know, but when I come back tomorrow, I would have read something, and I'll come and share some more ideas, because we don't read. So we are scared of questions and dialogue with our students. So we elevate ourselves just to stop them from asking questions. That's one way of looking at it. Anyway, so let me finish by saying that we keep on struggling. I think that should be the spirit. We keep on finding new ways of organizing under the difficulties, environments that are created by whoever it is. And that is necessary if, like Joe said yesterday, we have to protect the spaces we have won in the past, some of which we have lost tremendously, and claim new spaces for advancing freedoms in our universities and freedoms in our societies. And I think from the book that I was looking at, and that has not come out very clearly in our discussion, why is it that we need that freedom to think, to organize, etc.? There was that linkage between freedom and development. We cannot develop without freedom. And finally, when Walter was sharing his session and his panel and the discussion that arose, I thought that because it was the last panel, so it will be a closing session, but to my surprise, the discussion began afresh. And what was put forward is that, and this guy was telling me, I've forgotten your name again. Antipas. Yeah, Antipas was saying, we need more time for this discussion. And I said, we'll create that space for a specific discussion on technology and its implications to other aspects, including academic freedom. Thank you very much. And we have come to an end of our colloquium, but not to an end of discussions. So, I will invite you in the evening, for those of you who are not traveling, at a place called Breakpoint from 7 in the evening, where we'll continue this discussion in a more relaxed, informal way. Okay, so this is an invitation from the principal. We'll have a gathering there, a social gathering, and we'll eat and drink and discuss. That's a tradition of Codestria. After a long meeting which ends late evening, before you go to sleep, you go to a place to solve African problems. So today we are going to, from 7 to solve African problems. Okay, you are familiar. Yeah. So you're the one who is asking which break point. because he's from here. But this guy doesn't even know. But for those who are staying at Seychelles, I think you have someone has been there. Okay, it is walking. It is like 5 minutes walking to the place. You know it. It is Kinondoni. No, Kijitonyama Makumbusho. Okay, so all of you are here. Karibuni sana. Yeah, karibuni sana. Tutaendelea na mjadala. And for there are some logistics, some Vero will be handling. So if you are from Tanzania, Mkoani, okay, and things have not been sorted out, don't leave before that has been not sorted, until it is sorted out. And for those who have been coming and going back home on foot, today we'll hire you a boda to take you home. So don't go before we bring you a boda in this room. So you can have your lunch, but please don't leave before a boda is brought for you. Thank you very much.